It is 7:30. This is September 19th, 2024. As Vice Chair, I call this meeting of the Northwest Suburbs Cable Communications Commission to order. And the first thing on the agenda is to approve what the agenda is. Does anybody from staff or any member of the commission have anything that they think should be changed as to what the agenda is? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda? Is there a second? Discussion, all those in favor of what the agenda is signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say no or nay. The motion carries. Next item is the consent agenda, which is approval of the minutes from May 16th and the treasurer's report. Unless there's somebody that wants to talk about one of those items, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? I'll second that motion. So, all those in favor of the consent agenda signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say no or nay. The motion carries. We approved the minutes from May 16th and the treasurer's report, as indicated. Next comes the action items on your sheet. Presentation of the 2023 NWSCCC and CCX Media Audit Report. And I assume we have somebody here from our accounting firm. And yes. Go ahead, our audit firm.
Thank you for having me here this morning. Here to present the audit for the year ended June 30th, 2024.
And you're Andy Grice, is
Andy
that true?
Grice from Bergen KDV. Yep.
All right, very good. Go ahead.
And you do have a couple items in your agenda packets, one being the financial statements and also our communications letter. We're going to highlight those communications for you here this morning, starting with a look at our independent auditor's report. So going on a couple slides here, we do have a few bullet points just to highlight those communications. And wanted to begin just with our role as your auditor, what our responsibility is, and that's to give assurance through our audit opinion on the financial statements, and happy to report that we're giving a clean, unmodified opinion on the financial statements, which is the best that we can give as your auditor. We also issued our report on Minnesota legal compliance. We take a look at certain state statutes as they relate to the commission and report anything that comes to our attention of any non-compliance, and there are no findings to report there. And the last piece is our communications letter. That communications letter includes our consideration of internal control over financial reporting. So we take a look at the commission's processes, procedures, and report any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal control. And we did have one finding related to a lack of segregation of accounting duties. So that means that there is access for certain individuals to perform multiple functions within an accounting process, which is consistent with the findings that the commission has received in the past. So just something to continue to be aware of there. Going on two slides, we start to highlight some of the charts and graphs included in our communications letter. And we start by taking a look at the budget to actual results for the commission, which called for $4.6 million in revenue, $562,000 in expenditures, and anticipated a surplus there of about $4 million. There are transfers out to the CCX Media Fund that were budgeted for operational costs of $4.7 million, and that anticipated a decline in net in fund balance of $709,000 for the year. When we take a look at actual results, actual revenues came in at $4.2 million. That was $371,000 less than anticipated. There were certain revenues budgeted here that ultimately are recorded in the CCX Media Fund. Also, the franchise fees and access fees were under budget by $129,000 just due to less subscriptions. Expenditures were under budget due to certain fees being moved to the CCX Media Fund, and that ultimately provided a surplus of $3.7 million. And after transfers out to the CCX Media Fund of $4.4 million, ultimately there was a decline in fund balance of $743,000 for the year. That resulted in ending fund balance of about $5.7 million, and that's made up of cash, investments, and AR balances. Going on to the next slide, we'll highlight the CCX Media Fund budget to actual results, which called for $4.7 million in expenses, transfers in from other funds of $4.7 million and anticipated no change in net position in this fund. Revenues aren't budgeted for, just from a conservative standpoint, and those came in higher than anticipated at $112,000. Expenses came in at just under $4.1 million, which were $651,000 less than anticipated. The main driver there was turnover and change in structure in operations, ultimately causing a overall loss of about $3.9 million, and after the transfers in, a surplus of $484,000 for the year. Ultimately did land in a negative net position of about $1.2 million. Just a reminder here that this is a full accrual fund. It does include the net pension liability, which ultimately the commission or CCX Media doesn't have to write a check for. If you were to factor that out, that's $1.3 million. So would have a positive overall net position in that fund if it wasn't for that pension reporting.
Does that also have unrecognized holdings that have diminished in value?
So unrealized gains or losses are accounted for in your numbers here. And last year, there was a overall loss because of those unrealized losses, and this year there was a gain. So you do have a positive impact on your financial
This year
statements
being
this
2023.
year. In 2023.
Okay,
correct.
thank you.
The next chart we have, it just gives some historical perspective on the budget and actual revenues. Just wanted to highlight here that actual revenues are at a low point at about $4.3 million compared to a high point back in 2019 of about $5.2 million. The next slide shows the same information but on the expenditure side, and that follows in that the actual costs here for 2023 were at about $4.6 million compared to about $5.2 million back in 2019. The next chart shows the makeup of overall revenues, with the majority coming from franchise fees at about 82%. There's a decline there from about 85% back in 2022, followed by access fees at about 17% compared to about 19% back in 2022. Going to the next slide, just wanted to highlight the franchise and access fees and how those have changed here over the years. Again, we're at a low point here in 2023, but franchise fees continue to increase in their proportion to the overall fees being charged at 83% compared to 78% in 2019, so increase in that proportion there over the 5 years presented, whereas the access fees have declined since 2019. Back at, it was at 22% at that time, declining down to about 17% of overall fees in 2023. So something to continue to keep an eye on there. And then the last chart is just a highlight of overall sources of revenue and the individual revenue sources there. And again, those unrealized losses occurred back in 2022 of $173,000, which made an impact on the financial results. But again, with market conditions, those turned positive at $38,000 here in 2023. And again, the most significant portions being the franchise and access fees. That's a high-level look at the financial statements and our audit results. I want to thank the Commission for allowing us to perform the audit procedures this year and all the help that goes along with that process. But next, I'd just like to open up for any questions.
Questions from anybody? At the bottom, I always like to highlight the deficiency. A deficiency in internal control exists when the design or operation of the control does not allow management or employees in the normal course of performing their assigned functions to prevent or detect and correct misstatements on a timely basis. This in the past, and I take it now, is the result of us being small and not having enough staff like a bigger organization to have certain internal controls. That's true?
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead.
So to have proper segregation of accounting duties, you need to have separate individuals initiating and authorizing a transaction, recording and processing that transaction, the individual that has custody to the related assets, and then another individual that reconciles and reports that information. So there is a cost-benefit analysis that typically is done to determine whether that proper segregation would be of benefit, or if there can be other compensating controls, reviews from other individuals, given that certain individuals do have access to perform multiple functions. functions.
And we have other compensating controls, in your opinion?
There are other compensating controls, but not enough to reduce it to an other deficiency level. So it's something to continue to look at, just to ensure that proper reviews can identify any potential misstatements that might occur in your financial statements.
Okay, and then were I not chairing this particular meeting, I'd be sitting where Cheryl is, and I would privately tell you on line 4 of your letter, and Tim, my city manager, will appreciate that I'm being an equal opportunity grammarian here. You, on line 4, you've used the British Empire's technique for highlighting and putting quotes around commission instead of American English type. So take a look at that. The comma should be inside the quotation mark, even though that's counterintuitive. Or else start publishing from the United Kingdom somewhere. Okay. Anybody else have any smart aleck comments? Or any other type of comments? All right. Okay, thank you very much for the report. It's
Thank you for
very
having me.
confident and
Thank
very good. All right, next item on the agenda is the appointment of CCX Media board members at large. I think Shanna's going to handle that.
Yes, Mr. Vice Chair and Commission members, we have a vacancy on the CCX Media Board of Directors in the at-large position, and that is a responsibility of the Commission to appoint that individual. You might remember we went through this process in the late spring, so when we learned we were going to have another vacancy in an at-large position, then Chair Al Madsen and I went through the applications that we received before. We had 5 people apply for the last position. We had 4 left. And then Vice Chair Bill Blonigan and I interviewed our top choice again, which is Mike Ostaffi from the Maple Grove community. He serves on the Maple Grove Planning Commission. He has served on the school board, so he has both civic experience and community experience and business experience as well. So that is our selection for the CCX Media Board of Directors at-large position.
So in my letter, I say I am recommending that we appoint Maple Grove resident Mike Ostaffi to fill the CCX Media Board of Directors at-large position, and that's what it is. It's a recommendation. Shannon has indicated the reasons and the method we use to make this recommendation. So I guess that it's a recommendation. We could have nominations that are Mike, or Mike alone, or Mike and somebody else, or somebody else. So does anyone else want to nominate themselves or anyone else to be this position? Or does anyone want to nominate Mike Ostaffi to fill the position?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I make a motion to appoint Maple Grove resident Mike Ostaffi to fill the vacant CCX Media Board of Directors at-large position.
Is there a second? What about any other nominations? Hearing none, all those in favor of appointing Mike Ostaffi to fill the CCX Media Board of Directors at-large position, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say no or nay. The motion carries. All right, next item on the agenda, again, about a letter from me that I might have corrected if it was there an opportunity, but I didn't write it. So Shannon will handle this also.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. According to our bylaws, we need to have elections in November, and to do so, we need to appoint a nominating committee in September, which is this month. So Vice Chair Bill Blonigan and I talked about this, and we reached out to 3 people to see if they would be interested in volunteering for the nominating committee, and those individuals are Jim Willis from Plymouth, Judy Hansen from Maple Grove, and Beth Kramer from the city of New Hope. And so they will be putting together a slate of officers to be voted upon in the November meeting. So if you serve on the executive committee currently and you're interested in continuing, please let us know. If you are interested in stepping away from either committee or board service, or both, please let us know as well, so we can get that committee filled. Then at the November meeting, there will be an opportunity for nominations from the floor. If there are 2 people for one position, we'll go to a paper ballot, but if there's just one person, it will be a voice vote. So, Mr. Vice Chair, we recommend appointing Jim Willis, Judy Hansen, and Beth Kramer to the nominating committee.
So I did have input into the end of this, and I thought it good to have a majority of women for one time on a committee, so that's how I made the final recommendations. although Shannon did, circulate all the information and trying to figure out who wanted to do this. So, is there a motion to appoint Jim Willis, Judy Hansen, and Beth Kramer to the nominating committee? Is there a second?
Second?
Other people should be allowed to be nominated and appointed. Does anybody have any other nomination for anyone else to be part of the nominating committee? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. I'll say aye. All those opposed say no or nay. That motion carries. All right. Now we're looking for a referral of the budget to the executive committee. So Shannon, tell us about that, please.
All right, Mr. Vice Chair and Commission members, you have the 2025 budget before you. And we'll begin with the budget outlook that is on page 99 and also the graph that is on your screen. This is one that you've seen before. We look at the main source of revenue for the Cable Commission, which are franchise fees and PEG fees. And these are revenues driven by the number of cable subscribers with Comcast. As you can see, that number continues to trend down. The estimated average of cable subscribers as of June of this year was almost 39,000. It's lower than that now. On the next page, when we look at Cable Commission revenue, franchise fee revenue is 5% of the cable company's gross revenue from cable video service only. PEG revenue is $1.36 per cable subscriber per month. Franchise fee revenue, you guys can go ahead and advance to the next slide, please. Thank you. Franchise fee revenue is expected to decrease approximately 9.6% from 2023, and PEG revenue is expected to decrease 12.9% from 2023. On the next page, which is page 3 of your budget and page 101 in the packet, revenue projections, expenses, and balances. This page is a very sobering one, and we got a lot of questions on it last year. So last year we left it as it was. This year we put more work into it. We had Julie McMackins, who's with us from ABDO, spend considerable time reviewing this document and bringing it up to date. Now, in all, this page reflects the picture of what would happen if the losses in franchise and PEG fees remain the same, our expenses remain the same and adjust with inflation, and we dip into our reserves at increasing amounts to keep the same services up and running. I will add that we have tried very hard the last 2 years not to dip into reserves and really to live within our means, and you can see that reflected in the 2024 and 2025 columns for total expenses. A few notes about this page that I wanted to highlight as well. The $13,909 number, $13,909 that's in the 2024 column for year-to-year difference in franchise and PEG fees. It might look out of place when you look at numbers across that column, but that's because the loss of PEG fees was greater than anticipated in 2023. Additionally, there is some good news on this page. You'll notice an increase in the interest revenue line. I've been meeting more regularly with our investment advisor to try to figure out smarter ways to make some of our cash that's not generating any interest work for us, and that's where this is reflected. We recently made a change to move some money that was not accruing any interest in our checking account to a money market account, and then bring those dividends right back into our checking account. So we anticipate this will bring at least $75,000 back into our operating expenses budget, if not more. I am really hoping more. And so on the next page, moving into the proposed budget that begins on page 102, you can see that $75,000 reflected in the revenue portion of the budget under interest income. Also in that section, the Comcast monthly fees are our PEG fees, and the Comcast quarterly fees are our franchise fees. And you can see that we're looking at about a $244,000 decrease in revenues for next year. If you look at expenses, there are two basic places where we are trying to absorb these losses. The first is cutting $50,000 out of the City Capital Fund flat grant. Since the 90s, we've tacked on $20,000 to every city's proportional fund, just because we could. We are proposing taking that down to tacking on $15,000 per city, and that will give us about $50,000 left in that we're able to put back into our budget. Secondly, the largest expense for the commission is CCX Media, and that is reflected in the transfers outline. We are transferring $3.6 million to CCX Media, which is $111,000 less than we did at this time last year. Moving down into the buildings portion of the page, the commission does own this building. The only capital expense that we are proposing for this building is $10,000 for a new AC that will go into our control room. It's at the end of life. We've had a lot of problems. We don't need water coming out of the AC unit in that room with a lot of expensive equipment, so it's time for a new one. I'd hoped to produce a budget for you that was flat like we did last year, but we are needing to use $85,000 of our cash reserves in this next year. As you all know, the budget process is very intensive. A lot of time and effort went into this. From staff, tech services manager Jamie Anderson in the control room had a big hand in this, as well as Julie McMackins, who's here from Abdo. So I want to thank them for their work. My recommendation is for the budget to be referred to the executive committee for a closer look, but Mr. Vice Chair and Commission, I'm happy to answer any questions.
So, does anybody have any questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to refer the NWSCCC budget to the executive committee? Is there a second? I will. I've heard a second right over here. All right. Thanks, Mark.
You're welcome.
Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no or nay. That motion carries. We now have the introduction of a new commissioner.
We do. Carol Morris is with us. She is the new member representing Maple Grove, and she's taking Al Madson's place. She's been with the Maple Grove Communications Coordinator for a few years, but she's been with the City of Maple Grove for 28 years, so she's probably not a stranger to many of us. So,
And I did work directly with Al during his tenure as city administrator, so not really replacing him. You can't really do that.
That's right. That's right. She's been in our building many times, but she came for her official orientation and tour on July 30th. So, welcome, Carol. Thank you for being
Glad
here.
to be here.
Okay, thank you. And yes, indeed, welcome. All right, legal and legislative update from our attorney, Mike Bradley of Bradley Werner.
Thank you. Good morning. My report is in your packet. I just wanted to highlight three things. First, I would encourage all of you and your member cities to include broadband franchising and funding for access television in your legislative priorities for all of your cities, if you're still putting those together. But I would strongly encourage that that be included in your legislative policies for the next legislative session. It is in the League of Minnesota Cities legislative policies. I believe it is also now in the Metro Cities legislative policies. Secondly, I put a note, I don't know if it was this legal report, it may have been the prior one, but there is a digital equity grant through the NTIA, and there's a first round of funding that we're participating in with a group called NTOA. You may have heard of NTOA before. But there'll be a second round, likely a second round of funding for digital equity funding coming up probably sometime in 2025. And so just be aware of that as a commission, and we'll probably talk about that in the executive committee as we move forward as well. Third, I just wanted to highlight again that the Department of Justice released rules on the ADA and for compliance for city web pages and city web applications or mobile phone applications. And there is a 2-year window for compliance. So cities over 50,000 have to comply by April 24th, 2026, and then smaller cities have a 3-year time period to comply. So April 24th, 2027. Commissions, like our commission here, also has 3 years to comply. So just be aware that that's out there. If you need any other information, you can just ping Shannon. She knows all about it. And it's just very important that you become familiar with those rules. Know that your commission is on top of those rules for the video that we do here, but your web pages need to be updated for sure. And then lastly, I had a chance to speak at NATOA at the annual conference in South Carolina, and I'm sure it was probably the best presentation of the conference. I mean,
Absolutely.
I didn't hear otherwise, so it must have been. So anyway, happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Does anybody have any questions? Okay, so if I ever read something out of order, feel free, anybody, to just jump in, because I should be an equal opportunity parliamentarian also. I skipped over action item 4.1, and that's the presentation of the audit report. So Julie, do you want to talk to us about that? Or are you talking?
It was presented, we just
Okay.
needed to accept.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. All right, so the audit report, we had the auditor give us a indication of what we needed to do and how well we're doing with the communications letter. I did not ask for somebody to approve the audit, approve
Accept it.
receipt of the audit report. So, and we have a motion to accept the audit report, accept receipt of it. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. 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 All those opposed say no. Okay, we've handled the legal and legislative update. Next, North Metro Telecommunications Commission's consideration of merger.
All right, yes, sir. The North Metro Telecommunications Commission is investigating options for a merger with a similar organization. They cite declining cable revenue as the reason why. We are not the only organization that has been approached or spoken with about this potential merger. Our commission, our first North Metro Telecommunications Commission, is a 471 Municipal Joint Powers Commission. It represents the cities of Blaine, Centerville, Circle Pines, Ham Lake, Lexington, Lino Lakes, and Spring Lake Park. So our commission was approached by the city of Blaine this spring asking if we would be interested in having an informal conversation about this possibility. And our executive committee considered this, and we responded that we would have an informal conversation with two caveats: that any potential merger would include equal treatment of our cities as outlined in our joint powers agreement, and secondly, that any potential merger would be financially beneficial for our commission. Then commission members Bill Blonigan, Mark Schultz, and Judy Hansen met with 3 members of their operations committee for a conversation at our place on July 29th. And then I met with their co-interim executive directors for a meeting at North Metro TV on August 20th, just to answer questions about our organization, to kind of compare and contrast what we do and how we do it and how they do things as well. North Metro continues to discuss whether or not this is something that they want to do. If there is any further action, or if we are approached again, any action on our part would come before this body. Happy to answer any questions.
So part of the considerations were that Blaine is the city of those cities that has the larger population by far, and as a result, according to the way they do business, which is almost like a confederacy, instead of what we have, a joint powers agreement that sort of treats cities equally, Blaine gets over 50% of the vote because they have over the 50% of the population and subscribers. So that we made it clear that we would, if they did come in here, which is like super preliminarily speaking, as Shannon indicated, that they would, if they merged with us, everybody would abide by the way that we've been doing business. Other questions, as Shannon indicated? Any other questions about this?
I have 2. The first one is, what is the financial implication? What is the upside for us financially to do this? And second, in a future world where we were both combined, how would that affect the facility here versus their facilities, their location?
Go ahead.
We don't have any information as to how that would be a benefit for us financially at this point, or then what would happen with facilities. It's just way too preliminary to, we haven't gone down any of those roads.
I just struggle to see an upside.
Well, your question reached the crux of the whole matter. Like, wouldn't it be cool to have a larger footprint and more stability with more cities and population and revenue? But then the other countervailing question is, how could that ever work without impacting us so that we were subsidizing them? How could it work that what they bring to the table makes it so it's easier for us on a revenue and budget basis to get where we need to be?
Yeah, that's fair. We live in interesting times, so
Right.
it's good to have the discussion.
And furthermore, I mean, one of the reasons that Blaine originally reached out is the quality of our programming that we provide for our cities was a huge attraction for them compared to what they're currently getting. So that was the primary motivator, is how to serve their citizens better. But to the other points, it's still too preliminary to dig into those numbers. We haven't gotten to that point of disclosure or anything at this point in
All
time.
right.
But those are questions that I assure you were on all of our minds in that meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah, we haven't even reached the point where we know how many of their cities would actually want to do this. And to be fair to their cities, how could they know if they want to do this when we don't even have a structure proposed yet? All right, okay, that was an information item, I guess. So, we reached the point in the agenda where other business could come up. Does the staff have other business?
We do not.
Do any of the commissioners have something that they think should be talked about now as other business? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. It's non-debatable. All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 All those opposed say no or nay. We are adjourned. Stay tuned for another meeting.
All right, with that, we're going to go ahead and call the CCX Media Board of Directors meeting to order here this morning at, apparently it's 8:01 a.m. So we'll go ahead and move here with the approval of the agenda. Looking for a motion to approve today's agenda. All right, we have a motion. Our rules, just as for clarification, because it's still pretty new, do not require seconds on motions because of the rules that we adopted previously. So just to let you know, so if you're used to motioning and seconding, I won't be calling for seconds, and I might because it still is foreign to me as well, but I'll do the best that I can. So we have a motion on the floor. Is there any conversation? Hearing none. All in favor of approval of the agenda? Aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. All right, passes unanimously. Moving on to the consent agenda items. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Okay, have a motion. Is there any conversation? Yes, Eric.
Yes, hi, thank you. I'm Eric Margolis. I'm a board member of CCX Media and a member of the Action Committee. We've met several times, and I would encourage you all to thoroughly read the exciting dialogue that is taking place within our committee regarding the services that we provide to the residents of the 9 cities through the CCX Create channel. I think it's a valuable insight to some of the work that we're doing and some of the changes we're hoping to implement as we move forward through these very interesting times of reduced fees. We want to ensure that we are providing services to constituents and allowing normally underrepresented voices to be amplified. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other dialogue? Hearing none. All in favor of approving the consent agenda? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Moving right along. Now we're down into the next action items. Number 1, resolution accepting donations to CCX Media, resolution 20243. Shannon?
Right, Mr. President and Board, we love to receive donations, so this is one of the best action items. We've had 2 come in since our meeting in May, and they are on your screen. We had a $200 donation come in from the Medtronic Foundation volunteer grant, pointed our way from our favorite Medtronic retiree, Mr. Daryl Sanis. Thank you very much. And we had another donation come in from Barbara Rao, dedicated to the Create Department, of $20. This is someone that came in to watch and participate in Polka Spotlight and just thought she would write us a check while she was here, which fantastic. So I recommend that the board approve this resolution accepting $220 in donations.
Thank you. Looking for a motion to approve the resolution.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion. Any dialogue? Hearing none. All in favor of approving the resolution? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Approval of updates to CCX Media bylaws. Shannon or Mike, whoever's got this one?
I do. Mr. President and Board, we have been reviewing the bylaws the executive committee has, as well as our attorney, to try to make some minor adjustments to bring our language in line with what's outlined in the Articles of Incorporation. And so we have a few changes throughout your document. We tried to make sure that everyone that got a paper copy got a color copy so you could clearly see those changes. We also have 2 items that are up for discussion this morning, and they are on your screen. The first, both are in Article 7, Section 1. The first says officers shall be elected for 1-year terms by the board. We could have that be 2-year terms since everyone fills a 2-year term. So that's something to be considered. And then the second is it says officers shall not serve in the same capacity for more than 2 consecutive terms. There's actually no restriction on the number of terms in the Articles of Incorporation, so that could be eliminated. So those 2 items, Mr. President, can be discussed.
All right, is there any conversation, discussion? Hearing none, I'll just go ahead and throw my 2 cents in on here. Kind of backing up to the meeting before where we talked about appointing the nominating committee. When it was stated that they reached out to the 3 individuals, I assure you they reached out to more than 3, okay, in this quest to find people for the nominating committee. One of the challenges that we face is everybody here is busy, has other obligations and things like that. So it's difficult when it comes to finding people that are willing to add to their calendar and do this. And I personally know the challenges that are associated with that in my dialogues with other people trying to fill our nominating committee and such. So I think it's probably more advantageous for the function of the board to look at going to a 2-year term on that particular topic. That's just my 2 cents. So I would recommend that we hold the 2-year part in there as well. And then additionally down there, there's another one wherever that is. If you will, we can hop forward to that one, but that also has to do with the term limit kind of situation as well. Same kind of thing. There is there's a 2 consecutive term. If we vote on it every 2 years and nobody's willing to step forward, I don't necessarily see the pragmatism of having term limits in there. It just makes it more difficult for the operations, in my opinion, but I'm open to suggestion. And that's located on CCX page 40, if you're looking for the document.
Mark, you have something over here.
Oh yeah, Eric?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Just that in Section 2, Item C, the producers, it says.
What page, Eric? Are you on exactly?
Or page 2.
Okay, so this document, all right.
Yes. Section 2, Item C under eligibility. I think it's just an administrative clerical error. It says CCX Media producers. It should say CCX Create producers. It's the section that speaks about the 7 that are elected from the 3 categories, 2 of which are elected by the membership of CCX Create, myself being one of them presently, my colleague Kevin the other.
So you're suggesting we do a greater dive into that. CCX Create is technically part of CCX Media.
Well, CCX Media producers would also include the people that work for CCX Media producing content
Okay.
for other segments.
Any other dialogue? Hearing none, so I'm looking for a motion to address the concerns and move forward with the bylaws. Is anybody willing to make a motion?
Mr. President, are you looking for a single motion or dual motions for both?
I'm open to whatever you prefer. Ultimately, it's a bylaws document, so we can do whatever.
Mr. President, I would move at least in the first part to support the 2-year term.
Okay. Did you want to include any other aspects to that regarding term limits or the language correction?
I'm comfortable in supporting the 2-year term language as discussed.
Okay. All right, so in normal meetings, this is where these kind of motions can either go or no go on a second, but we don't have a second here, so we're gonna have to require some action on this, all right? So, all in favor of the motion that's on the table with the bylaws, the only change being support 2-year term? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Do we need to do a hand vote?
I think we do, please.
Okay. All right,
Mr.
Emily, you have a question.
I do. So are we only voting on the first point, the 2-year term? Or because that was the only motion that was presented?
As I understand it, Tim, that's accurate, correct?
Mr. President, point of clarification, my
Please.
intent was to move forward with just the term discussion and then.
Oh, just a term discussion?
Right, and then
Okay.
continue with the additional language.
Okay.
I apologize if my question wasn't clear. If there were separate motions, if you're looking for a single motion for all items, I'd be happy to redact my motion.
As I said before, I'm willing to accept it. I mean, in this particular, just in my brain space, it makes sense to address the bylaws as a whole as opposed to chopping it out. But again, I don't make all the rules, so. Emily, you still have a question?
I don't know if I have a question or not.
Okay.
Mr. President, if
Yeah.
I may, I would withdraw my motion in that circumstance.
Okay. So motion's withdrawn. So do we have any other motions?
Mr. President, I would like to make a motion, but I'm not sure how to articulate it.
Do the best to summarize it for you. We got attorneys and everything.
I will move to approve both of the updates to the CCX Media bylaws, because I agree with you that it's difficult to find people who are willing to serve with busy schedules, and so I'm in favor of eliminating the term limits as well.
Okay, so we currently have a motion to address the term and the term limit, as I understand it, that are expressed in here. Did you want to address Eric's concern about the clarifying language?
I'm not sure that I totally understand the
Okay.
concern about the clarifying language, so no, I will not
Okay,
comment on that.
okay. So I have a motion on the table, more discussion if it's warranted, including adding some clarification if you'd like. Adam, go ahead.
Just, I guess to clarify the producer question, the way it's written currently is a broader definition of the CCX Media producers. And Smartos, what you're looking to clarify is that just for the CCX Create producers. Is that, I guess, what is the intent of, I don't know the benefit or the consequence of that.
May I respond?
Sure.
Yeah. So historically, it's always been that the creative membership elects representatives in alternating terms to represent them on the board of directors. And so the broader definition where it says media makes that less ambiguous, more ambiguous. And so the narrower definition of CCX create producer is what I'm looking to clarify, so.
Mr. President, if I may?
Yes.
Also to Eric's point, the issue with CREATE is that there's a very small pool of interested individuals, and we run into the problem there, they run into the problem there, of running up against the term limits, or once someone is elected, they're no longer qualified to move further. And when there may be a handful of less than 10 producers that are in that pool of potential members, the challenge is finding qualified people, and sometimes the existing board members may be the most qualified in further terms. Does that help, Eric? Is that what you were getting at?
Yes, and I think I understand some of the confusion. The term limit is, Mr. President, just for the officers, is that correct?
I believe so.
Yes.
Yeah. Mhm. And so there wouldn't be a term limit on the board members, irrespective of how they're
Right.
elected. So, Mr. Woods does bring up an excellent point about why it's important that instead of it saying media, it say create, because it is the only, again, of all of the 15 members of the CCX board, media board, only 2 are elected by constituents who use the services in the facility. And I'm just concerned that there may be a misinterpretation in the future that it says CCX media producers, which would broaden the definition to include individuals that are not members of CCX Create. They're already
In other
represented.
words, staff members.
Anyone, really, right? It would be anyone who, yeah, so thank you, Mr. Beck.
If I may, President.
Sure.
Would we want to, would there be a situation where if there were no interested or qualified create members, that it would be, that we'd be allowed to then broaden it to all media producers? Or is that not concerned?
Historically, it hasn't been a concern. Yeah. I think it's more about having proportional representation, right? And this is the only part in the bylaws where we get into that proportional representation of the membership. So it's not, in my mind, exclusionary, but it does reinforce that we do want members of CREATE to step forward and be part of the governing body.
It's worth adding, I think that's the intention of the language, is the CCX create members elect their representative.
It's by its inclusion specifically, the full intention is to make sure that CCX Create has representation.
Right. So that's hence why, and I can motion it if that's appropriate, that the word media be replaced with create.
We have one motion on the floor that needs to be acted
Right.
upon, unless you can get the motioner to amend her motion to include your content. Kasner, are you open to that?
I will let him make his own motion.
Okay, so we have a motion that's been amended to support the changes that are suggested, as we spoke before, regarding the 2-year term and term limits, as well as a language change in section 7 from CCX media producers to CCX media, or CCX create producers and volunteers. Okay. You guys okay with that? Mike? You understand where we're coming from?
On the term limits?
Term limits, and then also the language change in here on page 2 of the document. You're good?
Is that the
It's-
CCX Media versus CCX
Create.
So I'll just tell you that on page 4 of the Articles of Incorporation, the language for director representation says 2 persons shall be elected by CCX Media producers and volunteers. The election qualifications and procedures shall be specified by the board.
So is there any issues if we change the language here that's not directly congruent with the language in the Articles of Incorporation?
The Articles of Incorporation control your organization.
Okay.
And so that's kind of your overriding document. And that's,
So is it your opinion?
so actually, the bylaws say exactly what your articles say.
So it's your opinion then that if we wanted to make this change in the bylaws, we should, I don't know, how do we amend our articles?
Yeah, you'd have to go through and amend the articles. I'm not sure it makes a big difference, honestly, because CCX Create is CCX Media or is part of CCX Media.
Part of.
So I don't really want to get into that whole discussion today. So I think that
Commercially,
if it's that big of an
CCX
issue
Media
for
producers,
the
volunteers.
for the board, that we bring this back to try to justify those two documents together. So then going from here, I guess, you amended your motion.
Do we have a
No.
conflict?
No, you didn't amend your motion to
No.
include his? Okay. So then the motion we have on the
Mr.
floor.
Chair, I refer to committee.
Huh?
I believe the rules that govern the body allow me to refer back to committee. Is that correct?
Perhaps, but not in the conversation of the motion, I don't believe.
Okay. Can we check the
But we
rules
could
then?
make that a future agenda item as well. It's not a big deal. Like, there's a other at the bottom that you can chime in on that one too. So we have a motion on the floor to adopt the CCX Media bylaws to include 2-year terms and no term limits. Okay? We've had extensive debate and conversation, so I'm going to call for a vote. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion passes. All right, on to the next one. Appointment of nominating committee. Shannon? you
All
want that one?
right, yes, Mr. President, because we just updated our bylaws, we need to have elections in November and appoint a nominating committee in this meeting. And just to get ahead of the game, I did check with 3 members of the board to see if they would be interested in serving on the nominating committee. And in my opinion, they represent the 3 types of individuals that serve on our board. Beth Kramer, who works for one of our cities, Kevin Vandenberg, who's elected by Create Volunteers, and then Mark Schultz, who has executive committee experience and is a city council member. So we are happy to accept nominations from the floor as well, or this body is, but that is the suggestion for the nominating committee.
Okay, is there any other nominations from the floor? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to appoint the suggested nominating committee members, as is outlined in your packet.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion. Any dialogue?
Mr. President,
Yes, Eric?
is there anything that precludes members of the nominating committee from nominating themselves?
No.
No?
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Next one, approval of members of CCX Media Board to Executive Committee.
Yes, Mr. President and Board, there are 2 vacancies on the CCX Media Board of Directors Executive Committee after the resignations of Al Madsen and Janina Posner. And so we need to fill those vacancies. An ask went out in the email update in August, and we did have 2 people step forward and volunteer to serve, so thank you to those members. Eric Margolis, representing Create Volunteers, and Adam Bell, representing the City of Crystal. Both have expressed interest and a desire to serve on our executive committee. So I recommend the approval of Eric Margolis and Adam Bell to our executive committee.
As I noted in the earlier agenda item, just to let everybody know, there was multiple members outside of these 2 that eventually stepped forward and said, yes, I'll do it, that considered this. So I'd like to thank you for your consideration. But at this point in time, I'm looking for a motion to recommend the approval of Eric Margolis and Adam Bell to the CCX Media Board Executive Committee. We have a motion. Any conversation? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Referral of CCX Media budget to CCX Media Board of Directors Executive Committee.
All right, Mr. President, board members, I would like to present the CCX Media budget prepared by staff and also with help from Julie from APDO. The budget outlook on page 51 and on your screen shows that the main source of revenue for CCX Media is transfers in from the Cable Commission. Funds are transferred transferred as needed to make payments, and additional sources of revenue are for-hire projects and advertising. As I know you all know, we are actively working on sports sponsorships, but when we were putting the budget together, we hadn't sold any yet. And so since that revenue source is so new, we did not include it in the budget for this next year, but we hope in the future we will be able to. Our two highest expenses are our people and our technology. Salaries, benefits, and personnel costs are reflected in the program services line. The budget includes a 3% increase in salaries for staff. It also includes the elimination of 2 positions where we did not fill the position when the previous employees left. Our second main expense is technology, of course, and that's reflected in 2 places here. The contractual services includes everything from our telephones to our many software subscriptions. And we are only requesting $60,000 in capital projects. That's the capital outlay line. And I will tell you that $30,000 of that is new tripods for the cameras that we purchased 2 years ago. We haven't been able to work the tripods into the budget, so that will be our big ask for this year. The only item that went up in that far column, building operations, and that comes back to increases in janitorial services and lawn care and snow removal. And we are actively seeking out other contracts and ways to reduce those costs. Looking at the detailed budget on page 53 on the next slide, I'm not going to go through the entire budget with you. It is lengthy, but I will remind you that this is the second year that we've attempted to divide up expenses per department. So some of the expenses are split between 2 departments. In the revenue section, you will notice that Google ad revenue is down. Google has changed their algorithms, and smaller organizations like ours have reported reductions in revenues. We are working on that. Under expenses, we continue to get bids for more cost-effective services. As I just mentioned, we're even looking into our telephone system currently as a way to reduce those costs. This is an ongoing effort. So outside of just a few increases in the budget, we tried to decrease across the board. I would be remiss if I did not say a thank you to the staff members, particularly Jamie Anderson in the control room, who has just been a gem in helping us identify ways that we can cut costs. It's just been a continual effort. The hope is that the CCX Media budget can be referred to the CCX Media Executive Committee for a closer look. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody have any questions? I'd like to reiterate and expand a little bit on what Shannon said. If anybody has questions about the budget, she doesn't necessarily want to dive into them here because they can be quite lengthy, but please reach out to her and she's happy to walk through any of those issues or items with you. All right, so hearing not a lot of dialogue, I'm looking for a motion to refer the budget.
Moved.
Okay. Any more additional discussion? We have a motion. All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Let's move over to the fun part. Informational items.
Yes.
CCX Create Action Committee update.
Yes, we will begin with just a brief update on the CCX Create Action Committee. As Board Member Margolis mentioned earlier, there are beefy minutes from this committee in your consent agenda. Please take a moment to look through them. There's been a lot of conversations, a lot of brainstorming around what we could do, what we'd want to do. We had ACM President and CEO Mike Wassenaar talk to us about what he's seeing at community media centers across the country as far as trends. Right now, we've got a great list that we're working on, and all the members have kind of a pet project that they're working on. So really, we're looking for the low-hanging fruit. What can we achieve first to really move the needle on Create? 2 things that we have done that I wanted to call to your attention is we've created a private Create member Facebook group as a way to foster collaboration and communication between members. We would like to meet them where they are. And second, the Create Board of Directors, members, and staff are coming together to work on a promotable calendar of events for next year. So we can really get behind that with a good promotion and get more people coming in. So that's the Create Action Committee update.
Thank you. Do any of the Create Action Committee members have anything to add? Briefly, if possible.
Nothing prepared, but I will say it's been an interesting experience coming together, forming, bringing everybody's ideas. As you'll read the minutes, you will see that ideas have come in a number of different ways. So now it's time to sort through, and we're trying to, as Shannon mentioned, get the things done that we can get done right away. The more complicated ones take a little longer. So thank you for creating the committee. Hopefully you'll see lots of results soon. Thanks.
Excellent. Jarek, you have nothing?
Well, since you're encouraging me.
Well, not really.
This is a very, obviously, if it's not obvious, it's very near and dear to my heart, the services we provide our constituents out of this building. We do a tremendous job everywhere. Create has a lot of opportunity. The staff has done a tremendous job to continue to provide services in an ever-declining revenue cycle. And we're encouraged. I think, there's a reason why our facility has reached a level where it's considered, one of the top facilities, community access centers in the state. And I want to make sure that doesn't dwindle away. And so through outreach and recruitment, topics that we've discussed, programming, the ability of trying to staff, increase hours, and supplement with volunteers to make up for budget deficits. Those are all the things that are in those minutes. I encourage you to not only read through them, but please reach out to any of us that are listed on the committee there. We want to hear your ideas. We want to know what we can do and create to really serve your constituents in the 9 cities. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. All right, moving on to staff update.
All right, you do have staff reports in your packet, and we're not going to go through each one, but there's a lot there, so please, I urge you to check those out. I will call to the microphone for a staff report. John Jacobson, our sports director. And how many years have you been doing sports here, Mr. Jacobson? It's significant enough to mention. 34th season. All right.
No, it's a good ride. I've got a few years left in me.
Good.
You've heard Shannon talk about declining revenues, and in previous board meetings talk about how can we get sports sponsorships for our high school games that we cover. And so we had a team of people that put together a packet, a PowerPoint. We brought them out to some potential advertisers, and we had a couple of hits, so that was good. And so our premier sponsor this year for the entire school year is Top Line Credit Union. They've got some branches here in the northwest suburbs and throughout the metro area. And so part of what they get, you can see on all of our replays in the games, their logo comes up right underneath our replay, and then they have a little pop-up logo that comes up from our score bar. And as well, they sponsor our Play of the Week, which is very popular, gets a lot of web traffic on our website. So we thank Top Line for them, and we hope to add more sponsors in the future, but Top Line will be our premier sponsor for the entire 2024-25 school year. In addition, we were selling what's called supporting sponsorships. We have one of those right now. Osseo Maple Grove American Legion has come on as a supporting sponsor. They get their logo right at the top of each event, and then right before the game or match starts as well. So we thank both Top Line Credit Union and Osseo Maple Grove Legion for their support. And again, this is our first foray into this, and we're happy with what we've got so far, but certainly want to grow this in the future as well. So thanks to everybody that worked on that to be able to secure those 2 sponsorships. I want to brag a little bit about our staff. We had some awards that we won. Shannon, when she was out in South Carolina, picked up a NATOA award, or at the NATOA conference rather, picked up an award that we won for our production of the state volleyball championship game from last year. Oh, it's got audio and everything. Wilson, Dave recline. Back to back to back to back.
Wayzata won 4 straight state championships. That last year's team was 34-0, probably the best team I've ever seen in all my years of covering high school volleyball. So our whole production team won an award for that in the Community Media Award, beating out some other local systems here as well for that. So that was a nice award to get. You can see that on the small table outside. In addition, a couple of our staff have won awards. Chaz Moots won an NPPA award for photography and storytelling, and our director, Isaac Rice, put together a compilation of his directing. This is basically what Isaac sees in the director's spot when he's in the truck. So you can hear both the sound from the game and Isaac's voice track, because he's got to pick out which camera, which replay to go to, which graphic to bring up, when to go to replay, and all of that. It's a lot going on
for our director. Isaac's been outstanding. He won a Telly Award this year, and he's been nominated for an Emmy. We'll find out next month as a director, going against some directors of newscasts of major affiliates in town. So for CCX to get someone in that category nominated is quite a thing. So we thank for Isaac and all our production team for all the work that they have done on our games this year. That's all I have.
All right.
Do you have any other
No.
questions?
Nope. Thank you, Mr. Jacobson.
Isaac will keep talking. No, there we go. Thank you.
And I did tell Isaac that if he won the Emmy, he gets the privilege of coming to the November board meeting, so he can be applauded. So we are rooting for Isaac. It would be a big win to win in this category against some of the big stations all across the Metro and the Midwest. Our next staff report will come from our Member and Client Services Director, Tamisha Torre, who's been one of the leading staff members on our transition from Granicus to Cablecast. This is a big, big project for this year, and we have had several staff members working on this. I think Tamisha has the very unique role of being on the front end and working with city staff, and then being on the technical end as well. So I thought she would be the best to talk about this, and this was also an item that was requested by a board member to be updated on. So, Tamisha, go ahead.
Yeah, so we're just, we're about 3/4 of the way through the process at this point, and we are on schedule, actually, so that's good. And I thought, just since some of the board members are newer, I just give you a little bit of backstory just so you kind of know what's kind of happened previously. And so this actually came up at the September 2023 board meeting as a recommendation, and it was just a recommendation to kind of help reduce expenses and kind of reduce and eliminate any workflow redundancies that we have going on with Granicus and with Cablecast. Cablecast has been kind of slowly upgrading their services and what they offer. So the recommendation was presented at the September board meeting, and then in November that was approved. And then in January 2024, we had an all-city meeting where we just kind of outlined kind of what the process was going to be and the timeline for the migration to happen. And that meeting was attended by kind of a mix of city clerks, city communications people, city IT people were at that meeting. After that meeting, then we then followed up with each individual city just to kind of address each city's needs, their timeline, next steps. And the first city to launch its public meeting site was Maple Grove. And so prior to each launch, we have a go live email that goes out, gets sent to the staff, and that includes links to our on-demand and our live offerings on that site. And then these links can be shared with city staff, your elected officials, any important city stakeholders, your residents, just so that they know how to get to the meetings. So the Watch On Demand button, that's kind of the lower button on our site, that takes you to your landing page where all the city-related content is, and then that's where all the meeting replays post after they've been recorded. And then to watch live, you can either hit the Watch Live on our CCX website, or you'll notice there's like a green button in the very top right corner of the pictures there that also will take you to the live feed and to the stream that's happening. And that's what's seen on channel 16. And there's about a 1-minute delay between what you're seeing online versus if you were watching on the channel. But you'll see there then Maple Grove's site, what their live, their on demand is on the left, and then their live, what you're seeing is on the right there. So with each launch, besides the changes that you're seeing there in just the platform and what that looks like, we're also making some changes just in agenda uploads. And so instead of city staff having to upload their agendas to Granicus, we're now just emailing to CCX staff, and then we attach those agendas to the meeting record, and then we enter that agenda, those agenda items into chaptering. So you can kind of see what the front end looks like on the top there for a viewer accessing the meetings. This is New Hope's page. And then underneath is kind of more the back end in Cablecast. What we're doing is to copy and paste your agenda items in so that those can be time-stamped later for linking. Another thing that's being added is closed captioning. And so that is actually currently being added to all our city council meetings. We've got Osseo here now. And in 2023, we do plan to caption all meetings and not just the city council. So any planning commission, EDA, HRA meetings, those will eventually be closed caption as well. Another thing then that we are working on is some of the cities requested some kind of meeting graphic refresh, and so we're trying to kind of, with our landing pages and with the graphics that happen during the meetings, eventually your Cablecast CG, we're just trying to match the city branding and come more in line with what the cities are doing with their branding. And then kind of the last thing that's kind of happening in the transition is that once a meeting happens, we do send links out to the city staff so that you guys can update your own city websites and get those links out to whoever you send those to. We do still have Golden Valley and Brooklyn Center were our latest cities to launch, and then we've still got 3 yet to go. So we're working on those. Robbinsdale is set to launch October 1st, and once we get everyone launched, there's still other work that has to be done. And so some of the work that is coming, CCX is going to be migrating all the Channel 16 bulletin boards from Carousel to Cablecast CG. And so currently how we have things set up is that your city bulletin board information is kind of alternating with city videos that are playing. But with the new design, we're going to feature more of a picture-in-picture where you've got city videos playing beside your bulletin board information. We have kind of started a little bit, but it's been kind of slow getting going. We were hoping to be further ahead in that, but that will happen. The other thing that we've kind of started is the auto-scheduling of the Channel 16s. And so once that's set up, the channel automatically populates with all your meeting recordings and any replays that happen. And that just kind of helps streamline our workflow and decrease the staff time that's spent scheduling. And unfortunately, the decrease in that staff time, it gets counterbalanced because agenda management now takes more of our time. So a little bit of offset there with the time, but that will also be happening. We've got 3 cities done with auto-scheduling, Brooklyn Center, Brooklyn Park, and Maple Grove. And then we'll be working on the rest here as we go along. And then we have a whole laundry list of kind of how-to videos and printed material that we think needs to be done. One of those is on the CCX Media Plus mobile streaming app that we've got. What we're finding is that viewers are making less and less distinction about how they're viewing. They don't know if it's TV, they don't know if it's cable, they don't know if it's streaming. They just know they're watching it on TV. And so we're hoping to get the word out more about that. So if you've got residents who are on Roku, who are using Amazon or any of those other streaming platforms, we want to let people know about that. And then just one of the other things is just how to use closed captioning with the new Cablecast platform. So we're going to have a little how-to guide with that, and hopefully just a video on like how to use the public site and navigate around that so that you can access all the programming that is actually there. And then just the download and archive of meetings from Cablecast. We still haven't looked into that too much, but I do want to include that because we don't have unlimited server space here, and most of the cities have chosen a rolling time frame between 6 months and 2 years for archiving their city meetings on Cablecast. And so at some point here in the future, if any meetings that you want to save for posterity, we'll have a workflow that you can go through to download and archive those as well. And then as far as the cities and what they need to do, the most important thing probably right now is the contract with Granicus expires at the end of the year. So anything that you want to grab off of Granicus needs to be done before the end of the year. And even if you've already switched to Cablecast, the Granicus login that you have is still good. If you don't have one, let us know. We can have Chris get you one so that you can access what's there. I know one city was discussing the possibility of creating their own YouTube channel, just kind of like a private channel where they could archive past meetings. And I think we started with Granicus in 2008, I think, and I know some of our meetings go back to like 2010. So that's 14 years and a lot of video and a lot of meetings. So if you're wanting to archive any of that, those videos, I would recommend doing that. And don't wait until December to do that. So I think that kind of gives you just a general overview as to where we're at, where we're going. And I kind of hope it answers some of your questions and just walks you through some of the process and kind of the scope of work that's been involved. And again, if you've got any questions, you can reach out to me or to Chris. And you can, I don't know if we have a few minutes now, if you've got questions now, otherwise catch us after the meeting, or you can give us a call or email us anytime, so.
Does anybody have any questions for Tamisha?
The only question I have is that I know that cities are required to keep record of their city meetings. I'm just not exactly sure where that falls in statute as what that is. And so if it is in statute that says we have to have these meetings available, then that needs to be a fundamental policy of the cablecast policies. And so if we could just look into that and see what the individual cities' responsibilities are under statute, that would be helpful.
Yeah, and what we've been told is that your meeting minutes are the actual official record with the state. And I think someone had said that they only have to be available for 3 months, but I know the cities are keeping them much longer. But we don't actually have to keep anything as far as the video goes once your meeting minutes are approved. That's the official record.
Jim?
I don't think anybody should ever assume that official community records are secure or will be kept by this organization. So, I mean, that term, the perpetuality of it is not accurate in that sense. Official records have to be maintained by the governing body.
And I agree with you. I think some governing bodies, though, since we are a JPA and we serve the cities, might not necessarily understand that distinction. So I think that's an opportunity for us to figure out and bring back to the member cities so that everybody's got everything squared away.
I know in Cablecast right now, like most of the cities have at least 2 years worth of videos that are there that we can access. And then depending on, with the individual city meetings that we had, cities had the choice of how much time they wanted to leave their video content online on that platform. And so, like I said, most of them have been going 6 months to 2 years, somewhere in there, so. And we've gone longer with some things where maybe you don't have meetings as often in a certain thing because everything shows up in a playlist and populates the page. And so some of those searches we've set up to be a little bit longer just so that there is something populating those playlists. So like candidate forums, we're now in an election cycle, so that gallery's kind of being beefed up now, but we had some older 2022 stuff that was in those playlists originally, so yeah. Okay, that's it.
All right. Thank you, Tamisha.
Yep.
One final item under staff reports, I did want to highlight 2 national awards that our Create volunteers brought home, and I got to pick up these at a conference in San Jose. And okay, we have audio on this too. Okay, that's great. So these were both these are competing against volunteer producers from across the country, not professional productions, but volunteer productions. And so Baby Blue Arts presents their holiday celebration in 2023, won in the local performances category, and then in the entertainment and arts category, Cable Hot Dish Season 2 premiere, which if you haven't seen Cable Hot Dish, it's kind of like a Saturday Night Live with different skits. I think that's how I would explain it, but it's got a following, and the guys that produce it are very passionate about it, so you should check it out. So we're very proud of these awards. We got so many since we last saw you that we put them all out on a table in the hallway, so please take a look to look at those. And so with that concludes the staff reports.
Thank you. Moving on the agenda, other business to come before the board today.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I just wanted to offer congratulations to CCX staff and volunteers for all the hard work that they put into producing quality content and representing our cities and sharing news and information. So thank you very much and congratulations.
Thank you.
Anything else? Not hearing much. Let's go ahead. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion. It's a non-debatable motion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're out of here. 8:48 a.m.